with the Data Service Center. The team helps coordinate the CDP Community Data Program webinars and answers StatsCan data requests. Their contact information is on the StatsCan website, infostats@statscan.gc.ca, and you will see the chat in the notes in the chat box as well. So with that, I would like to introduce our amazing presenters. Evelina De La Hoz has worked at StatsCan Canada for over 20 years. She is currently the Assistant Director in the Methodology Branch, responsible for the methodology work of the Census of Population. She joined the Census of Population in this role in 2023, having spent the better part of the previous decade in various roles, managing and leading the Census of Agriculture. Tanya Hinchcliffe is the 2026 Census of Population Content Determination Manager. She joined the census team in 2021. And Ida Di Domenico has worked at Statistics Canada for over 40 years. She is currently the chief responsible for planning, coordinating subject matter requirements for collection and processing activities for the Census of Population. She joined the Census of Population in this role in 2005, having spent the better part of the previous decade in census operations. So I'll pass it to the StatsCan team for their presentation. Thank you.
Thank you, Sadie, for the lovely intro. So I'm Evie De La Hoz, and I will go through the first portion of the presentation, which will cover the changes and updates to methodology. So this will be, as you may know, the census undergoes changes every cycle, and I will try to cover some of the kind of bigger pieces that are new for this time for our program. First, I'll talk about our new frame, the Statistical Building Register. This is a new frame that defines the list of dwellings in our target population. So this is the list that we use in order to send out mailing invitations to all of the responding households we expect. I'll cover some collection processes, so some new ones and some existing processes that have updates and changes. I'll talk about our collection wave methodology. This is the process by which we have a series of invitation letters, reminders, and follow-up activities that aim to obtain as many responses as possible from everybody. I'll then go on to talk about the alternate secure access code option that respondents will have now for the first time. This is an initiative that allows people to access the electronic questionnaire without having their secure access code from the invitation letter. Then I'll discuss early enumeration, which is an operation that will take place again after not having it happen in 2021 due to COVID. And finally, a little bit about a new chatbot that will be available to respondents for answers to some easy questions that they might have. And finally, I'll conclude with a little bit on our expanded use of administrative data through a small-scale live test that we plan to have in 2026. So the Statistical Building Register is a new frame for the census. It does replace the previous address register that we were using. It covers the entire country from coast to coast to coast. And it's built from various administrative sources, which collectively provide our comprehensive list of residential, commercial, and mixed-use dwellings. Some of the attributes that are existing as information on this register are things like geolocation, occupancy, and contact information. So these are the things that we use to be able to reach out to our respondents. Approximately 91% of the residential buildings on the business register, the building register, do have mailable addresses, and this forms the basis of our initial mail out with invitation letters. So in 2026, our census will use the building register to identify these dwellings that are associated to the residential building addresses. And those are the ones that will receive invitation letters requesting that they respond and complete their questionnaire online. For any areas that don't have a mailable address, invitations will be dropped off by field operations staff, or they will be enumerated through a list leave approach. This is a graphic that describes our WAVE methodology for collection. And we call it WAVE methodology because we have different phases of invitation letter and reminder materials to reach respondents at various points in time and encourage participation and response to our questionnaire. So as you'll see, that mail out portion of 91%, that top sort of row in this graphic, shows where the majority of activity takes place. We start with our first wave, where we mail out an invitation letter to all of those 91% addresses on our building register frame, and that happens on May 4th. Following that, we have Census Day, roughly about 1 week later. And that's the big day when we expect our biggest response to come through. In order to sustain that response level continues to filter and come in, we have some reminder letters and reminder messages that go out after that. So around just after Census Day, we plan a reminder letter for any outstanding respondents, as well as a new text message reminder. So for those that we have set telephone number that we can send a text message to, we will do so. We've found this to be an effective way of reaching respondents as people are more mobile use practices and that sort of thing. So we'll be doing that this time. After that, we will have a second reminder letter happen sometime in late May, early June, and another text message or voice broadcast reminder right before our non-response follow-up operation starts at the beginning of June. So this is sort of the trajectory of events that will take place. And then we have non-response follow-up go all the way up until the end of July, where we have field staff and telephone follow-up happen for any of the cases that are still outstanding. There will also be one last non-response follow-up reminder letter that happens in mid-July, roughly speaking, to kind of have one last opportunity to signal to any outstanding respondents that they can still respond up until as much as we can get them to. In the drop-off section, so this is the middle portion, the WAVE approach is a little bit different because these areas are a little bit more remote. We have the drop-off take place in the beginning of May, and list leave as well happens at that time. And then we have some text and voice broadcast reminders wherever possible take place towards the third week of May in an effort to bring in some more self-response. This is all an effort to kind of obtain as many self-response as possible through the electronic questionnaire before we have to start using our non-response follow-up options. We do have some non-response follow-up that will take place at the end of May and into July. And that'll be through telephone or in the field with enumerators, depending on the situation and the area that we're looking at. And we also have one additional piece, the remote and reserve regions. So those will have some mail-out invitation letters. There will be some drop-off as well, and there will be also list leave and, of course, non-response follow-up as well. So if we move on to some of the other collection initiatives, as I mentioned, we will have for the first time an alternate secure access code option for respondents to use. This will allow them to fill in the electronic questionnaire without having their initial secure access code that was included in the letter that they received. We tested this in 2024 and it was successful, so we will be using it as an option. The goal is to really enhance the respondent experience and to make self-response easier. Like, we recognize that people can lose their letter and that sort of thing. So then when they get a reminder, they want to go and respond, but they can't find their access code. So oftentimes in the past, this has resulted in many of them calling our helpline, which was an effective way to get that secure access code generated, but now they'll be able to do that themselves. So our EQ portal will allow for respondents to generate a new secure access code. They'll have to provide their address, and then the secure access code request will be automatically inserted in the system through a matching process where we will generate and match the address to something that's already on our frame. And so in some cases, it's possible that we might not be able to automatically match to an existing record, and those will be resolved posteriorly. So in this whole process, privacy and security are preserved, and this response option is expected to really reduce the number of people that are seeking help through the helpline because they can't find their secure access code. The linkage processes that are working in the background to make these links happen and resolve cases through this process are being optimized and are undergoing continuous improvements for 2026. Another initiative that we're having this cycle is the early enumeration. This is something that we didn't have in 2021, as I mentioned, due to COVID, but we are bringing it back for 2026. So it's being reintroduced. And this early enumeration will actually start next week on Monday, so we're pretty excited about that. It aims to enumerate people in Northern Reserve and remote areas where it may be easier to access these areas now in February and March rather than in May and June, when some of those communities may not be at their primary residence because they might be migrating to other areas or not there at the moment. So the goal is to get as many of them to respond when they are in their primary residence. We've started with some pre-listing activities in January where possible so that we can get a head start on listing the dwellings that are in these regions. And our collection, as I mentioned, will start next week. And it will include a follow-up pretty shortly after the beginning of the operation. Collection is done through listing and dropping off of invitation letters, and online completions via the electronic questionnaire will be possible, and that's what we hope will happen to the degree that is possible. But of course, in-person interviews and enumerators will be there to conduct those as they will be required. The alternate secure access code portal that I just discussed will not be available for this operation. However, the census helpline support will be available for all respondents in early enumeration. And as another initiative to help respondents is the chatbot. Introducing a chatbot is something new, and respondents will now have the opportunity to get the information they need for some of the more simple requests pretty quickly on their own, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. This will provide consistent and accurate and approved responses to common questions, such as, why are you doing a census? Or some other questions that can be answered fairly easily by providing information to links or additional resources. There will also be this is a way to have automated support for census respondents, but also there will be an option to transfer to a live agent if the chatbot is unable to answer some of these questions. Okay, so finally, I'd like to discuss a little bit about our expansion of the use of admin data. So I'll give a little bit of background first so that I can lay out the context for this. We have been doing research in the area of administrative data for decades and looking at how to best utilize it in the ways in which it makes sense, and we can leverage the strengths of these data within our processes. So currently our research activities are ongoing, and they're focused on the increased use of admin data towards a combined census for 2031. So this is where information is collected directly from respondents and is integrated with administrative data that individuals have already provided to government organizations and agencies for the purpose of enumerating the population. So it's a combination of response information and administrative information about a given household. So combined census would leverage the statistical demographic database, which is a database that's built from the integration of already acquired federal and provincial government administrative data sources, and it includes demographic information at the person level. Then statistical models are used to create what we call an administrative household of in-scope people at a given administrative address. So in 2026, we're looking to have what we call a live test, where we aim to test the replacement of information using administrative data and also test the combined census model. So to that end, administrative data would be used for a small volume of dwellings, approximately 130,000, with high quality admin data, which are still unresolved at the time of the non-response follow-up. The data replacement would be for a limited number of short form variables. So it's not replacing everything throughout the questionnaire. This is the end of what I was going to cover from a methodology perspective on some of the changes, the bigger changes that are happening for the census this cycle. There are, of course, many other smaller changes that are in place as well, but these are the ones that I felt were worth discussing together today. So at this point, I can pass it over to Tanya, and she'll go over some of the content changes that will be there in 2026.
Hi, sorry, I'm just getting my screen share sorted. I'll be with you in just a second.
That's all good. Yeah. Thank you, Evelina. And everyone, just if you have any questions, please post it in the chat box. We have one question here that says the combined census will include info from other government agencies, just federal or other levels of governments.
I believe mostly the administrative sources are federal level sources because that allows coverage of the entire country, and other sources of information are not permitting coverage of the whole country unless you have every province or every smaller area existing. But I'm not 100% sure that we don't have some other administrative, like that it is specifically only. There may be some situations where we leverage some sources that allow to give some specific information that we wouldn't otherwise have. I could get some details on this and provide a more concrete response, but usually it's largely federal.
So we passed the 15-minute presentation for Evelina, so we will put these questions to the Q&A session at the end of the webinar. Thank you for sending that. Yeah, Tanya, I leave it to you.
Yeah, hi. I'm also sharing my screen, so I can't see you guys, but I'll see you in a minute. Okay, so I want to start off with timeline for determining the content of the 2026 census. The timeline is it started for content determination anyway. It started in winter of 2023, where we completed our stakeholder engagement. between spring and fall 2023, we conducted qualitative tests on proposed content changes for the census. And we also worked to evaluate and determine content that would be tested in our 2024 census test. In the results of the 2024 census test, conducted between May and October 2024, were then analyzed and other factors were considered, for example, response, burden, cost, operational constraints, before content recommendations to Cabinet were finalized in the spring of 2025. And in spring 2025, Cabinet approved the final content for the 2026 census, which was then published in the Canada Gazette on Saturday, July 5th, 2025. At this point, I just want to put a plug in. So as you can see, the content determination process started fall 2022. If we look forward to 2031, our content determination process will be kicking off in late 2027. We would love to speak to you guys, come out, talk to you guys about how you can get involved. If anybody has any questions, please reach out. So that's my little plug for our next cycle. So back to this cycle, an overview of the 2026 census content. We have three new topics, and this new content includes a question on general health, a few questions on homelessness, a question on sexual orientation for Canadians that are aged 15 and over. We also have the religion question that is returning in 2026. In the past, the religion question was only asked on censuses in years ending in 1. So this is the first time it's coming in a year ending in 6. And then we have modifications to other topics, other content. We might have changed some of the answer categories around. We might have flipped the sequence of some questions, changed the flow through the questionnaire on the electronic questionnaire, moved some of the content to different parts of the questionnaire. So there was quite a few modifications. I was thinking yesterday, I was trying to think of if there was anything that was not touched, and pretty much almost everything was touched in one way or another. In this presentation, I'm going to go over the new content. When I share it, you'll see in the appendix, I've got information on the modifications to the other pieces that I won't cover today. So the new content, general health, on the left-hand side, you can see the new question as it would appear on our paper questionnaire. It's a simple, valid, reliable measure and an important indicator for overall health status and well-being that can be used for program evaluation and planning at all levels. It's also among the top data gaps that were reported during content consultations. And the question in its format, as you see on the screen there, is StatsCan's harmonized content, and it's used in many of our health surveys. The homelessness questions appear on the left again. The questions capture a 1-year retrospective experience with absolute and hidden homelessness, as well as current experience with hidden homelessness. So homelessness was among the top data gaps and information, and it could be used at all levels to evaluate requirements in the National Housing Strategy Act and for program evaluation and resource allocation. The sexual orientation question, again on the left, it's only asked for persons who are aged 15 and older. It was again among the top data gaps reported during content consultation. And as of 1996, the Canadian Human Rights Act specifically includes sexual orientation as one of the prohibited grounds for discrimination. It is the only one of the groups identified in the Act for which census data are not currently available. The addition of a question on sexual orientation on the 2026 census would enable StatsCan to produce census data on the 2S LGBTQ+ population and provide opportunity for Canadians to respond to a questionnaire that reflects the diversity of the population. The religion question has not changed from the 2021 cycle, except in the fact that it appears on the 2026 cycle for the first time. And our On the electronic questionnaire and on the paper questionnaire, you can go to a web page that lists some examples, and that list of examples has been updated for 2026. This is our population life cycle. You can see it's quite busy. And the 2026 cycle started back in 2022, and it continues right through until autumn 2027. Lots of work remains to be done, including, most importantly, collecting and disseminating the data. As you can see, we're in the green sort of bullet part here. As I tried to encompass all the stages that are currently where we're at. And then next week, we move into the February 2026 early enumeration, which Evie mentioned. And just an idea of some of the next steps. So the 25-26 fiscal year, the focus is on getting ready for collection, with the early enumeration starting in February. In 26-27, we are in collection mode, with plans to release the population and dwelling counts in early 2027. And in 27-28, we will continue with disseminating census data and the data quality studies. And in 2028-29, we will complete the evaluation of the 26 census cycle. I'm also including a list of some of our published products. So when the deck is circulated, feel free to click on any one of the links and you'll go to, we have fact sheets, technical reports, a whole bunch of, a wealth of information for anybody who's looking for, to get any answers to any questions. You can also reach us through InfoStats and our colleagues. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you, Tanya. We have a question. It's asked, the inclusion of a question related to homelessness is a great addition. Given the census is traditionally sent to household, attaining data on these individuals seems like a challenge. How will StatsCan ensure the sample size of respondent is statistically significant and useful?
That's a really good question. I'm going to touch on it, and I may need to take it away and go to our subject matter partners. I also have my colleague Genevieve on the line with us, and she can step in if I misstep. So with the census being a dwelling-based survey, it is correct that it would be very difficult to enumerate people who are actually sleeping rough. The census does go to collective dwellings. And by this would include homeless shelters. So a portion of the population who happen to be in a homeless shelter on census night would be enumerated. The questions on the census form itself are to get at hidden homelessness. So this might be people who are couch surfing or staying with family because there's no other place that they can go. I think I had something else. Yeah, so those sleeping rough. Jen, sorry to call you out. Did I miss?
No, I think I just maybe want to clarify on the question. So I think you're honing in on the aspects of the long form questionnaire goes to households, right? And so we're asking this question of those who are possibly sleeping temporarily in a home and covering a particular subset of the homelessness population. This data collected through the census would not be able to provide counts for the entirety of the concept of homelessness. That is not the geared approach. Is that what the question was honing in on in regards to statistically significant and useful? Was it trying to understand that element? Perhaps we can follow up with it offline and give you a little bit more information on that question after the webinar. There is also a technical report that was published to this effect that would detail the use of this data and how we came to that decision to include it.
Awesome. Thank you. We have around 2 minutes to the end of Tanya's kind of presentation, so I will ask the next question. Sorry, Tanya, is that okay?
Yeah, there's just somebody knocking on the door.
Oh, that's okay.
Sorry.
Yeah, that's okay. Yeah. How did you decide on the grouping for sexual orientation?
So again, I will we do have some information in this on our technical report on sexual orientation that's published on our website. To my knowledge, and this is something that our subject matter partners would be able to speak more extensively about. From my recollection, that the first of all, the age, the 15 and plus grouping is actually it's the StatCan standard, and it does align with other statistical agencies around the world. There's alignment there. I will defer to Jen for a moment to see if I missed something there.
I am sorry. I'm trying to follow between the chat, which question we are answering. I'm very sorry. I'm not able to follow.
The question asks, how did you decide on the grouping for sexual orientation?
The age grouping or the options?
I think they said related to answer options.
Oh, okay. I mean, these are chosen through a fair bit of research, and there is a standard that was developed for this content specifically. So, you know, through qualitative and quantitative research, the options are decided upon. So we've gone to Canadians, we've tried different groupings, the language being used there, and we've seen what resonates, what makes sense, what speaks to people's experiences, and what also provides quality data, and that is what we have landed on.
Awesome. Thank you, Jen. Thank you, Tanya. So I think we need to go to the next presentation, and then after that we have a Q&A session. So we will make sure to answer your question, and if needed, we stay a little bit longer. But if there is kind of, I see that the StatsCan team also responding through the chat box. So, so I pass it to Ida.
Thank you. All right, so I'll start with the collective dwellings. And I'll start with the definition of what the previous slide. Oh. So here, the definition. Okay, sorry, maybe go back then. I have my order in the wrong, my copies in the wrong order. Sorry, Tanya. Okay. So I just want to give a brief outline of what I will be talking about this afternoon. So we wanted to show you here where we've come from, so past collection methods, how we enumerated collective dwellings in 2021, where we are in terms of objectives and timelines for 2026. I wanted to touch on some of the changes for 2026, which includes the demographic data from non-institutional collectives, the qualitative testing that we had for 2026 that was first of its kind, the readiness test that we're doing with our field partners every cycle. I wanted to touch on the electronic questionnaire follow-up strategy, our new pre-contact survey, our improved collection for private attached dwellings and administrative sources, and our frame maintenance. I just want to mention here that I due to time, I can't cover all these aspects. So when I get to the last slide, I'll let you know that I'll be skipping over them, but the information is in the deck for you. All right, so what is a collective dwelling? So a collective dwelling refers to a dwelling of a commercial, institutional, or communal nature in which a person or group of persons could reside. The collective dwelling must provide care or services or have common facilities shared by occupants, such as kitchen, dining room, or bathroom. Examples of a collective dwelling include long-term care homes, residence for older adults, lodging or rooming houses, correctional institutions, group homes, hotel, motels, tourist establishments, hospitals, just to name a few. We are counting usual residents. The census counts people in the dwelling in which they usually live to ensure that a person is enumerated once and only once. People are counted in their usual place of residence. Collective dwelling types that we have collecting information for. We break those down into two groups, the institutional and the non-institutional. Institutional are the hospitals, long-term care, residential care facilities, shelters. These are areas where we have administrators that are helping us with providing the information for the usual residents. And then we have the non-institutional groups, which is the lodging and rooming houses, the Hutterite colonies, establishments with temporary accommodation services, such as hotel, campgrounds, or hostels, and other establishments such as school residences, military bases, and work camps. So our past collection methods, prior to 2021, collective dwellings were traditionally identified, classified, and enumerated by census employees in the field. Data from collective dwellings was collected by field enumerators. Dwelling administrators working with field staff answered on behalf of their usual residents. Until 2016, in the case of hotels and campgrounds and other establishments with temporary accommodation, enumerators would leave census questionnaires for usual residents and then return to collect the completed questionnaires. In 2016 and 2021, only usual resident head counts were collected from these groups. All right, 2021 collective dwelling enumeration methods. 2021 pandemic protocols resulted in the elimination of in-person visits for institutional collective dwellings, including senior residences, long-term care, hospitals, and religious establishments. As a result, substantial changes were made to collection methods. Introduction of an electronic questionnaire was completed for collective dwelling administrators. Field collection retained for rooming house and Hutterite colonies. Non-response followed by field enumerators was suspended for institutional dwellings. Implementation of a computer-assisted telephone interview caddy follow-up for institutional and most non-institutional dwellings. Collaboration with Justice Statistics to get complete administrative data replacement for people in federal penitentiaries. So we tried to hone in on administrative data that we have in-house. So some of the challenges we faced in 2021. So determination of the in-scope versus out-of-scope collective dwellings. Because field staff were not permitted to enter establishments that housed the most vulnerable due to COVID-19 pandemic, StatsCan relied on the administrators of these establishments to determine the status of their dwelling. Facility administrators did not always understand the concepts or what was required for the census. This resulted in a large number of canceled or out-of-scope dwellings. There was high non-response rates for basic demographic information for residents from facility administrators, such as living arrangements and language variables, information that typically is not housed on administrative records. For some collective dwellings, critical information was missing from the data provided. Example, date of birth, sex at birth, or gender, or no data was provided through the attachments that were provided by the administrators. Large increase in the number of private dwellings attached to a collective. Very, very difficult concept. And with the absence of an enumerator, it was very difficult to collect that information. 2026. So we tried to look at a few things to try to make some improvements. One of the things we wanted to maximize data from persons residing within the collective dwelling. So the usual residents, we wanted to maximize on that. One way to do that was we looked at the collection methods and we looked at the data and we thought, we didn't want to go ahead anymore with this collective head count. So we went back to collecting short form data from all usual residents. That includes those living in the non-institutional dwellings. So no head count. Allowing residents to self-respond online without requiring a secure access code. So basically, as Eva mentioned earlier, the secure access code can be also used by any resident living in a collective dwelling, but it is non-advertised, but they can use it. Improve data quality, include collective dwellings in pre-census qualitative and operational testing. Improve the collective dwelling electronic questionnaire for administrators. improve follow-up strategy and return to in-person visits, and conduct the pre-contact survey for selected collective dwellings to improve census frame for collective dwellings and private dwellings attached to them. So if I could just touch on that follow-up strategy on this slide here. So as I mentioned in the previous slide, we didn't have non-response follow-up for institutional dwellings in 2021. So this is one of the biggest improvements that we're making for 2026 is going back in the case of non-response for the institutional dwellings. This slide here just basically gives you just an overall schedule of our activities that I mentioned earlier, and these are all the improvements we tried to make along the way with the activities that we've implemented. And the last one was the pre-contact survey back in the spring of 2025. And as was mentioned before, we're heading into the early enumeration next week. And I should mention that for the early enumeration, our electronic questionnaire will not be available for the administrators. They'll be filling out the information through paper questionnaires. So as I mentioned earlier, I won't have time to go through all of these, but I'm going to go through this one here and then I'll skip over a few. So for the demographic information for institutional collectives, I mentioned that for 2026, StatCan will collect basic short form information for all usual residents living in both the institutional and non-institutional dwellings. No longer a head count of usual residents, as we did in 2021. And information will be collected in the same manner as for institutional collectives using an electronic questionnaire. Thank you. So for self-enumeration. Yes.
Okay. Sorry, I thought that is done. Sorry, interrupting.
That's okay. So allowing for self-enumeration for residents of collective dwellings. The primary enumeration method for 2026 remains the collection of administrative data from facility administrators on behalf of residents. Feedback from previous census cycles indicate that some residents in collective dwellings, primarily those in long-term care homes or residents for older adults, expressed a desire to complete their own questionnaires. New for 2026, a NOSAC portal will be available to residents of collective dwellings if they choose to self-enumerate. Respondents will be able to complete their own two-way questionnaire online, and this will be a non-advertised method of self-enumeration in collective dwellings. Tanya, I'll get you to skip over the next two for sure, and the next two again, till we get to the slide 18, which is the use of administrative sources. As I mentioned before, we are using in-house data collected through Justice Statistics to collect data for correctional, for those living in correctional institutions. We collaborated in 2021 with the Canadian Centre for Justice to use previously collected correctional data to complete census requirements for people in federal custody. This was to address a known undercoverage issue for this population. We also created a linkage project to ensure people included on private census questions were not also included as part of the collective dwelling. Project was very successful, and we are expecting the same level of reporting for the 2026 census. Other sources of administrative data that we're looking at is the potential use for 2031 is the Hutterite colonies and potential use of information from their own databases of members. So this is something that we would like to pursue for 2031. Frame maintenance, as Evie touched on earlier, our statistical building register. It's no single comprehensive list of addresses available. It's a statistical building register containing information on residential and non-residential buildings. Collective dwellings can be comprised of both the statistical register integration, administrative data as primary driver for updating our SBGR, integration and determination of business rules for more than 65 sources, possible to create a quality frame with limited listing in civic mailable areas, challenges with collective growth administrative sources, availability of data, classification, quality of data. Office listing processing are specifically looking at maintenance operations, updating areas where to update imagery exists. Field listing processes primarily for updating outside areas covered by the authoritative sources and lead growth. So again, we're using the SBGR for collectives for the first time. And here's just a little illustration of all our maintenance processes where we're using administrative sources, we're doing regular maintenance, we're using our field listing, office listing, and as I mentioned earlier, our pre-contact survey that was new for 2026. So these are the sources that we'll be using to update our frame for 2026. Hoping for better frame, better data.
Awesome. Thank you, Ida.
Thank you.
Amazing. Thank you, StatsCan team, for the presentation. We have time for it's a kind of question and answers session right now. So I'll start from the top that the questions we didn't have time to answer. So I think that was for the Evelina's kind of presentation session. That was a question is, where does the admin data come from? Examples, tax data, other.
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes, tax data is certainly one big piece. There are other data sources that are used as well. So some examples I'm thinking of are things like vital statistics, things like child benefit, programs like this that can provide specific information at the demography level, but also address and contact information brought together. So these are all integrated into one big database that includes all of this information and synthesizes it to create these administrative households.
Perfect. Thank you. Next question is, I'm sure a way to cover for the non-response in the long form from the admin data. I'm having flashbacks to the 2011 census where I was a summer student on non-response follow-up where some were convinced that the short form was voluntary.
Yes, thank you for that question. So I did mention in the presentation that the administrative data live test is really aiming to be tested on short form only, and that because it only contains demographic information, the administrative data that we have. So the long form will remain as is, a traditional census that is fully, well, all of the census is fully mandatory. And that remains as is, but non-response will be done in the traditional way for the long form. So again, the live test is this very small piece. It's very limited. It's really meant to be a test. So we will have traditional non-response follow-up in the short form as well. It's just that for a small number of records, we're looking to test this new approach to see how we can make use of the administrative data more fully.
Awesome. Thank you. And if your question have been answered, but you have a very quick follow-up, please unmute your devices. I see some messages coming at the end. I don't want to lose the questions already, asked, and one I need to be asked, so I can't go down. So please unmute your devices if you have a follow-up question. The next question is, where can we see what modifications have been made to existing questions? And I think it's related to Tanya's kind of presentation.
Yeah, so I will be circulating this presentation and I do have an appendix on the back that goes through the modifications. Also, you can see a lot of information on the content for 2026 on some of the resources accessible through the links that are included in my presentation as well. If you have any further questions, please reach out and we'll do our best to answer them for you once you have a chance to review.
Awesome. So the next question is, does the statistical building register include accessory dwelling units such as laneway or garden side coach houses? Wondering if the census will be sent separately to these types of units or only to the primary dwelling on the property.
So yes, the building register includes all types of buildings, not just residential buildings, but our invitation letters will go out only to residential buildings where we are looking to get responses from people living as in their usual place of residence at that location.
Great. Will the language around visible minority question change in the 2026 census?
Yeah, so it has changed. We no longer use the term visible minority. We're using population groups. And so you will see that change on the in the questionnaire.
Perfect. Will any of the modifications impact comparability over time?
That's a very good question. So far, any of the changes and initiatives that have been brought on are expected not to have such an impact. So, you know, the new building frame that is being used aims to list the same conceptual population of dwellings in the country. So we're expecting to see the same coverage from that point of view. The other initiatives like the no secure access code option for respondents is being linked to that register. So again, we're not expecting anything to impact comparability over time in that sense from that. But of course, and again, even administrative data, our test is very, very limited to ensure that there will be no significant impact on results from that change. So that's the goal.
Great. Will there be an intercensal comparability document that highlights changes in question methodology, which might make responses non-comparable across census periods? Examples 2021 to 2026.
Is this a question? Maybe I'm not sure if it's for me or
Yeah,
I'm
not
I mean,
sure.
I can answer part of it. Maybe you can add to that. There will be documentation that highlights changes, that explains changes, that speaks to what those changes mean and the kinds of impact that they may have on data quality. So that is actually currently being created as we speak. We've begun that process of describing these things in user documentation that will be made available as part of the user guide, and potentially there will be more technical reports that follow that speak to specific elements in more depth. So there will certainly be supporting documentation to help understand these things in more depth.
Great. So yeah,
I don't know if you wanted to add anything.
I don't know that I can add anything except to say that our subject matter partners do tend to publish a lot of supporting documentation. And if there's something specific, please send me a question and I can connect with the subject matter partner in question and get you an answer for that.
Great, thank you. Will there be any changes to existing census definitions of variable and their categories similar to how the breakdown of household type changed in 2021 census?
Again, I assume, I'm sorry, I assume our census subject matter partners will be creating a bunch of documentation to help with interpreting the data. And if there's something specific, please let me know and I can reach out and get an answer.
This question is asking, do you think using the term homeless for hidden homelessness may present a barrier for those that may experience hidden homelessness but do not wish to be labeled as homeless?
Yeah, that was there's been a lot of research done on the term homeless, and I know that our subject matter partners have aligned with the terminology used by other government departments. It is definitely a sensitive word. We saw that in our consultations. I think the way the questions are worded and some of the help text that appears on screen, hopefully they will serve to maybe destigmatize the question and sort of explain why we're asking for that information. And yeah, it's definitely a sensitive term. Yeah, I can again refer that to our subject matter partners if you'd like more information on that one.
Perfect. Thank you. Is there a way for folks with no fixed address to participate if they want to? Can we direct people who are staying is staff accommodations or shelters or elsewhere to complete the electronic survey?
So people are to be enumerated at the place that they are on census day. That's sort of the census definition of the target population that we want to capture. So if someone is staying in alternate accommodations, in a shelter or someplace else, the goal is for them to be enumerated at that location. So if that's a shelter, it would be through the process that Ida explained takes place in shelters for collective dwellings that way. If it's staying with a family member or a friend or someplace that's, temporary, again, they're to be enumerated through the questionnaire that's filled out at that place of residence. So the household would include that person as part of their response. That and that information and sort of guideline of instruction is available through the help text and the some of the help information that's there for respondents to access, to understand that it does encompass these people that may temporarily be staying with them, or be just staying there that night but not living there permanently. They're to be included. So that's available through instructions for people to know.
Great, thank you. It's 2:30 p.m. Eastern time. If folks wants to leave, please do, but we will stay for a couple of minutes if the StatsCam are okay to respond to the questions in the chat box. It's just a few more questions left. Hopefully we can wrap it up soon. And then the in email that shared with you on the beginning of the webinar in the chat box, you can send your any other questions you have to them, making sure that kind of will be sent to the right department. So the next question is, in large and medium cities, people live in encampments, and those are not considered as a dwelling unit according to census definition. Do you have any plan to count the people in encampments?
So there are other activities undertaken by other government departments. One example is a point in time or a pit count that is taken to try and measure some of the people who are sleeping rough in these encampments. These activities are not led by StatCan, but our subject matter partners do work in collaboration with the people leading these activities. So there, I can get, I hate to say this, but I can get more information from our subject matter partners, but there are other activities outside of the census that are happening to try and measure the people that are sleeping rough.
Maybe one thing I can add to that is, while they may not be explicitly represented in the census number, the census does have some evaluation studies that take place after the fact to measure how many people are missed or overcounted during the process. And so in that undercoverage study, we are able to we represent that population through that estimate that is published later after the census is complete. So we aim to have that representation in that way.
Perfect. The next question is that if I understand correctly, the electronic questionnaire was not used at all before 2021?
That was already answered. Thanks.
Okay. I see that the stats can respond to some of the questions. The question here asking basically down the road, will admin data be used to weight the 25% long form? I think related to the admin data question at the beginning for Evening.
So we're currently in the process of evaluating the possibility of having a combined census. And so that's the model that we're trying to test through the short, small scale test that we're doing this cycle. What these results lead to is not fully known, but the prospect of a combined census is certainly something that we are considering. Will it be used to weight the 24% long form? That would only be in a situation if we were to have a fully admin-based short form census, which we're not looking at for the moment. We're really focused on a combined version that we're looking to test and understand if it's feasible for us to implement. So we're still many steps early in this process towards a full admin census.
Yeah. And the question related to that, if you already answered it, please let me know. So for some reason, for some of the long form questions, won't admin data help reduce response burden? Examples, IRCC immigration data can reduce the number of immigration related questions in the long form.
Yeah, we do use some admin data to reduce burden in the long response burden in the long form. There are some questions that previously appeared that have been removed over time because administrative data sources are available. You mentioned the IRCC immigration data, tax data comes to mind, and we also, this cycle, we removed a question about dwellings on farm operations because they're captured in our Census of Agriculture. So we constantly, every cycle our subject matter partners do look at the administrative data that's available in an effort to reduce long form response burden.
Great. Thank you. In thinking about the business register, will this ever be available as an open geospatial product similar to census boundaries, etc.?
I'm assuming this person is referring to the building register. It's and whether it will be an open geospatial product. I'm not aware of such a plan. It is possible that it's something that's being worked on. One of the challenges with this is that I believe that one of the things we would need to be able to have that happen is to have coordinates, to have the oh my God, I'm drawing a blank here. Yeah, coordinates, right? And we don't unfortunately have that for the full frame. So that is a gap at the moment that may be preventing us from having a geospatial product like that for each of the buildings, of course.
Okay, perfect. Okay, so we have a few more questions. I think that would be, I believe, the couple of last questions. And thank you so much, Ivenika, Tanya, and Aida, for flexibility, staying a bit longer. So the question is that, could you please connect me to the subject matter experts for household type and structural type of dwelling?
Yeah, we can definitely do that. If you can, whoever left that comment, if you could let Sadie and Amanda, if you could work to get that information to my team, then we can definitely connect you.
Yeah, absolutely. So Lori, if you want to send your email or something, I can send it to Amanda, and Amanda will work through that. Have there been any changes to definitions such as how Statistics Canada defines rural and urban areas?
Yeah, no, that's a question for our geography group. Can we get back to you on that?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. And the last question is, many city regional municipalities have some sorts of initiatives to document the homeless people living in encampments. Partnership with city to count homelessness population would be helpful. Not sure if a question.
Yeah, our housing team is working in concert with partners to try and get that count. Yeah, they do have partnerships in place, and they are working to try and best capture the size of that population.
Awesome. Great. Thank you, Lori. Yeah, send your email. I will send it to Amanda, and for that specific question. So thank you, everyone. Amanda, if you could stop recording, and the recording and the presentation slides will be shared with you in the coming days. And yes, so that for the rural question as well. So we have two questions that we will send it to you